Hey folks, in this video we're talking about how to play Molly Tuttle's opening break for her tune Good Enough off of the album Rise. Also, congrats Molly on your IBMA wins. That's second year in a row of Guitar Player of the Year. If you're interested in more about this tune, like the chords, her other break, the fills, please bother me in the comments below. Also, if this is the first video of mine that you found, please check out my other Molly Tuttle video. It's about how she plays White Freightliner Blues. It's a killer tune. I love the way she plays it. That's why I made the video. There's actually a full transcription of the way she plays it available on my site too. Lastly, please let me know if you have a favorite break or tune that you want transcribed. I've been getting so many requests and so much work from you guys because you have this song, you've never been able to find a tab or a good arrangement, and you asked me to transcribe it. I love it. I love doing that. You can go to my website, lessonswithmarcel.com. There in the tab store, you can place those orders. You can make that happen. Also, I need more ideas for videos. So cool. If you haven't heard this song, go do it. It's a bop. The version of the intro break that I'm teaching is based on this performance. Now, this is an improvised opening break, so every time she plays it, it comes out just a little bit different. So please do check out that performance because that's the one that I'm 99% working off of. Then you can come back and learn how to play it with the rest of us. I'll wait. You're back. Great. Let's do it. So chords first, then we'll do a breakdown, and then lastly, we'll do some practice tips. So the chords aren't too surprising. They definitely fall more into that, I don't know, Bluegrass camp. In order, they are E minor to a C chord to a G chord, then we get an extended D chord, and that pops us right into the beginning of the form. Now, on Molly's break, she does a lot of chords. There's some strumming, there's some double stops, and there might be some chord shapes that you're a little less familiar with. So let's get to those first, and let's just go through them. All right, first up, we have E minor. Of course, Molly strums some of the standard E minor chord. You know it, you love it, it's right there. She does use a different E minor voicing, though. She uses a double stop out of this voicing. You can think of it as kind of like a D minor shape that we've moved up a couple frets. It's pretty easy. Put it in your pocket for later. After that comes our C chord. I'm sure you know the standard one. Molly also uses a suspended C chord. We call this C sus2 because it substitutes the second degree of a C major scale for the third that we would normally expect to be there. Then we get our G chord. If you play some Bluegrass already, you know that we prefer the G chord with third fret fretted on the B string. I think I can hear Molly taking this a step further. She uses a G chord, though, that eliminates the B note on the A string. So she's resting her middle finger on the A string just to mute it. I know that's a little nitpicky, but it's good to know how to do. Beyond that, she's doing one more variation. It's a G6 chord, and she's just letting her high E string ring out. Our last chord is the D chord. Molly uses the out-of-the-box D chord that we all know and love, but she also uses a D add 4 chord sometimes for the second half of that extended D chord. She doesn't do it every time, but in the version we're looking at, she does do that, and that's one of the reasons that I picked this particular version of the intro break. It's called an add 4 chord because it adds the fourth degree of the D major scale. So if you're thinking D, E, F sharp, G, there's our fourth, D add 4. So that's all of the chord shapes that we should know. Now let's talk through her note choice and her composition. Let's see if we can make some educated guesses about why she created this break the way that she did. So it would be really easy to take this break and just say, hey, it's G major, E minor, pentatonic, and there's some chromatic stuff going on. But I think that's really lazy, and I don't think it's even really that accurate. I think there's more going on that kind of makes it feel more modern the way that Molly's playing does. And in fact, this break feels a lot more diatonic to my ear. So I think analyzing the specific choices she makes over every chord, I think would tell us a lot more about the break and how it's created the way it is. So using the G major, E minor pentatonic that you already know as a starting point, let's move forward. Now immediately in that pickup phrase, before we even get to beat one, we have a bunch of added chromaticism. So let's listen to that. Now there's a bunch of ways to justify why these notes work. The broad answer is that chromaticism moving up to chord tones of minor chords feels good. A closer look shows that there's actually two different things at work here. The first is the flat 5 connecting your open A string and a fretted B note. Now this is one of the safest chromatic movements to include over a minor chord. You may recognize it as the blue note in just a normal E minor blues scale. Our second chromatic movement feels so good because it very subtly points at a chord change that doesn't actually appear in the music. Moving from D sharp to E is a leading tone. We're stepping into the root note of the current chord, and by doing that, no matter how briefly, we're hinting at another chord. Keyword here is hinting. The chord being hinted at is either B7 or G augmented. Both contain the D sharp, so both could be used in a dominant function to get to the tonic, E minor. But G augmented is more likely because she's just hit her open G string and let it ring out. So now that we've overanalyzed, it's a really fancy way of saying that this chord, moving to this chord, sounds cool as hell. Now when I play that passage slowly, I bet you can really feel some of that drama. Moving forward, Molly includes some chord shapes and some E minor pentatonic, just like we expected. And as we transition to the C chord, we also transition into more of a C major pentatonic feeling. There is one Sush! Come on, man! There is one exception, though. Molly has again included a leading tone to the root note of the chord. The target note appears on beat 1 of a measure, just like last time, but in this context, it feels much more like she's quoting a standard bass walk rather than implying a new chord. You're undoubtedly familiar with this sound. Now, that's just another way to sneak in a note that we wouldn't expect if we were thinking with our pentatonic hats on. In the next line, we get our first G chord. Molly first uses the chord shapes we know, and then yet again gives us a leading tone into G on beat 1 of the next measure. This diatonic triplet pickup into a G is very standard bluegrass lingo. The phrase probably reminds you of the beginning of tunes like Big Scioto or Temperance Reel. It also hints at a very quick 5 chord like the previous examples, but even more than that, I think it plays on our expectations and past knowledge of bluegrass standards. It feels familiar and right, but at the same time more modern because we're not used to hot lick kind of players frequently using this kind of language mid-G chord. To finish, we get 4 measures of a D chord. Molly is using some more progressive cross-picking and strumming to finish out this intro break. This is all deliberate arpeggio work and syncopation. Then when we expect the next chord, instead the form is elongated, so we get 2 more measures of D chord, this time with an added 4th, to simultaneously heighten the tension and with the inclusion of that open G string, soften the blow into the E minor chord. Let's get into some practice tips. Beyond understanding why the break was created the way it was and how she created it that way, the most important things to learn and play this break back the way Molly does will be understanding some of the hallmarks of flat picking. Her notes are clear and they're crisp. Her picking and strumming is all strict, alternate, down, up picking, no matter how complicated the syncopation gets. So let's go through that tab carefully and let's try to isolate some problem areas where your picking might get backwards. You might play an up where you're supposed to play down. Maybe some moments where the fingerings have some different opportunities, and let's explore what those are like. So if I'm looking at the beginning of the tab, I see that the first note we actually play is on a downbeat. That means we're going to start on a downstroke. That first measure, it's going to hit me as all down, up, down, up, down, up, down. The next measure should also feel pretty easy. Pick, strum, pick, strum. The first moment you might get into some struggles is right here. We have to slide up to this double stop. Getting to that can be a little uncomfortable. When I first started playing this, my first instinct was to use these fingers. Problem is that when you come down, we have to get to a C chord after that, and that means we have to make an awkward movement with this finger. I don't really want to do that. That means that the easier choice is to slide up this double stop with these fingers. And that kind of sets up my hand, so look, I got this guy free right here when I have to switch to my C chord. So this leads us into another moment where your pick strokes might get backwards, and it's right here on this triplet. Now what should happen is I should use a downstroke to start that triplet. It feels really good to use an upstroke, and that gets me backwards, and I'll show you what happens. If I use an upstroke there, I end up starting this measure, with an upstroke. You never want that upstroke on beat 1. It'll get you all backwards, and then you have to try to fix it in some way. I think the better option is to stick with that downstroke. That'll make those 2 measures sound like this. And that'll set you up right for the first note of that second line, which should be a downstroke. Beat 1's got to be a downstroke. Down, down, up. Now we get 2 upstrokes in a row once again. So down, down, up, up. Our triplet's a downstroke. The measures that are full of 8th notes are actually much easier to get out because you don't want to get things backwards on the syncopation. You can kind of feel it, and it feels natural. Let's keep going. I'm looking at the rest of this line with my D chord. Down, down, up, down. might seem a little weird, might be a measure that you have to work on. Let's keep going. Down, 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 up, up. And once again, ending on that upstroke, it sets up the downstroke for the next measure. She gets really kind of sloppy and strummy in that last measure. I tried to notate it carefully, but ultimately some of that is feeling. If it was me and I was playing this tab, I would just strum out that last measure and it would feel probably more natural than trying to play it exactly like it is. Playing that entire D chord passage. Couldn't sleep last night. All right, hopefully that helped a little bit. Those are just some of those nitpicky moments that I think are really going to make the difference in how this comes out, if it comes out really good or if it comes out kind of sloppy and your pick strokes seem weird. Now that you've seen all that, please take a peek at this completed break with the tab and try to spot everything we talked about. Those chord shapes, where those double stops are, how the pick strokes are lining up, where she's using leading tones in places that you wouldn't expect in bluegrass. And then you can try to put all of that in your own playing, or you can try to learn this break specifically. So here you go. Wonderful. I hope you liked this lesson. The tab should be available for free. There should be a link in the description. Remember, you can check out my other Molly Tuttle video on White Freightliner Blues. You can get that tab as well. If you'd like me to transcribe any of your favorite flat picking recordings or videos, you can place those orders on my website, lessonswithmarcel.com. That's in the tab store. You can also go there if you want to sign up for Skype lessons with me. You can check me out around the web. You can also check out my Instagram page. That's Jazz and Grass. It's a new guitar lick every single day. I think that's it. I'll see you around next time.